This call is being recorded.
Welcome to Ask Win, everyone. This afternoon, I have Linda with me, and Linda is a podcast host of Stop and Listen. And she'll correct me if I'm wrong in the way I just said it. And she'll explain what her podcast is all about. But it's the communications and of listening, actually stopping and listening and having a conversation with people. And when this episode was set up, I was actually in a hotel room getting my boiler fixed. For those of you that don't know, I had a boiler explode on me in the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021. I almost had a boiler explode on me. And so, as I was sitting there processing what my next move was going to be, literally and figuratively, I got a phone call, and Linda suggested that I talk with her about my biggest pet peeves. One of my big pet peeves is when people talk to the aide instead of me, and that's my big pet peeve. And so I'm going to let Miss Linda take it away and explain more about her podcast. And then we're going to get into the meat of the conversation. So, welcome, Linda.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Win. It's an honor to be here today. I'm here near the Seattle area, and we actually have a tiny bit of sun today. So I'm very excited about that. So I am Lynn Lindbergh, and I started the podcast called Listening Skills. And it came out of a couple of things. One, it came out of a project my son and I were working on together. He had a summer in 2020. He had a summer class where he could shadow a professional, and he said, "Mom, you're a podcaster. I'd like to learn how to podcast." So he did all the technical work. A 17-year-old did all the technical work for this podcast, and I just did the voice of listening skills because we did a little research and we realized in a world where people are really struggling to listen to each other, there is no podcast until now that covers simply the basic listening skills. And so it's a very, very simple podcast. Each episode's only a couple minutes long. And within just a few minutes, your life can be radically changed with listening skills. And so when I met you, I was fascinated by the concept of how individuals with disabilities many times have a double barrier to being listened, because not only do they have the normal barriers of just how humans aren't really listening to each other, but like you said, sometimes folks even just talk past the person and talk to the aide. So when can you help the audience understand that a little bit better and what that situation is, and then we can dive in a little more deeply.
That situation is okay. I, g- I give you a perfect example.
Okay.
When and now this was this was probably in 2019 when I was at the grocery store with one of my aides. And I was 31 at the time. I'm now 33. And my aide could not get over the fact that they were not only shocked when people start staring at me, I say hi back to get their attention just a little bit to get their eyes off me. And my aide, when we get back in the car, my aide goes, really? They they still stare at a 33-year-old. Now, granted, for those of you that seen pictures of me and know me personally, you know that I'm skinny as well. You know I'm not obese, and you know that I use a walker. And I make that loud and clear that I use a walker. And so I this aide was amazed that not only people were staring at me blankly, but they weren't even interacting with me. Now, it's hard it's hard in the time of COVID, as we record this, to be interacting with people because we have our mask on and every which way.
Mhm.
And so, but what I find infuriating is when the aide is standing behind you, and what I find infuriating, and I know one of my aides does listen to this podcast, and what I find infuriating is when the aide is standing behind you, and then they're trying to do something on your behalf, and the person comes up and just starts talking to them, talking
Mm.
as if you're the ghost beyond the ghost. And it's like, really? Really?
Mhm.
And it's like, okay. So, how are you and I today, Linda, going to educate people on how to stop doing that?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
No,
it's a real pet peeve of mine.
absolutely, and I think, really that whole concept of you name it, you can tame it, and so by you giving your story of, "Hey, please don't look over me like I'm a ghost or a shadow, and talk to my aide as if I don't have the ability to think or hear or communicate. Please talk to me." I think that awareness alone is really great. Here's a question I have for you is if somebody doesn't know you or doesn't know somebody else and they're not aware of that person's ability to communicate, would you say then that the correct or better thing to do would to talk to the individual directly anyway, and then if for some reason the individual wasn't able to respond, at that point, the aide would come in and be the aide? Is that a better way?
Yes, that is a huge better way than treating us like the ghost. And 9 times out of 10, those of us who are considered nonverbal, um, have communication devices like iPads.
Yeah.
iPads have now become communication devices for people with disabilities. And or they have a big honking dinosaur, Frankie Muniz, talking device. But if you look at what Stephen Hawking did, Stephen Hawking was a brilliant scientist with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS.
Mhm.
And if you look at what he did, he was doing mathematical computations by the blinks of eyes and communicating by blinks of eyes. And he was brilliant in every which way. So, and if you look at Christopher Reeves, who had Gehrig's um, Link's disease, which is a
Mhm.
tumor on the spine, which a lot of people don't know that that he had a tumor on the spine. I didn't know this until a friend of mine told me this. But if you look at the way that he spoke and with his tumor on the spine, the way that he tumbled off and Hollis left him paralyzed due to you can't remove that tumor. And
Mhm.
doctors are too afraid to remove the tumor. I have a friend who has the same disease, and I'm eventually going to get her on my podcast to explain her story. So the way Christopher Reeves tumbled off that horse, that's what um, that's what sent him into paralyzation. But the way that he spoke with the breathing tube and every which way, I think was amazing. But
Mhm.
to get back to what your question was to me, I I think if people are not open enough to talk about their disability, yes, then you can use the aid as a scapegoat, but at least start talking to the person.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so tell me a little bit more then too about uh you said about different talking devices. I don't think people are very aware. I don't know that I'm even super aware of what those devices look at like or can you describe, like, if I was meeting somebody, what are those different devices? What do you call it? Speech support devices? What
I communication devices,
Okay.
speech support is another way to put it. I would say back in the old days, they're about, and if you look up pictures of Google pictures of Stephen Hawking, and you'll see a huge dinosaur looking box, um, and it's done by the Frankie Muniz company, and it's still a huge dinosaur-looking box.
Hmm.
And what you have to do is the child, if they have even if they don't have hand control, they can pick a picture of what they want to say and it can create a sentence, and then they hit a button and then it reads the sentence out for them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But
And we
now
Go ahead.
but now these devices have gotten so slick that so many people use Apple devices that it's not even funny. They use iPads as their communication devices. Same same concept as what I just said, but on an iPad.
Mhm. Okay. And would you say, is it fair to say then that if I saw somebody who had a communication device, that I would especially wanna make sure I'm making eye contact and talking to them, because the communication device in and of itself shows that individual really wants to communicate because they've got this device. Is that
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly. That
Mhm.
is that is the truth of matter. If you now obviously if you're running into a stall you don't want to deal with. But basically, if you have the chance, look a person in the eye and wait for what they have to say. Some people are really quick on these communication devices, others couldn't care less. I have a I have a friend that couldn't care less about a communication device. I also have friends that really cease to amaze me, and I'm communicating just as a normal human would. They cease to amaze me at how quick they are on the communication device.
Mhm. Oh, that's actually fascinating. That's a good point too, of if I approach someone to talk to them, to also give that individual an extra amount of time to respond, if I don't know them, until I get to know them a little better and know what's an appropriate time, because maybe I need to give them more time to respond. and I'm just not giving them that time.
Yeah,
Is that yeah?
yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I would phrase it, because you are either skilled on the communication device or you're not.
Yeah. Yep.
And no individual could push a nonverbal child to be skilled on their communication device. No matter how hard we try,
Mhm.
the child has to, or the adult has to be skilled enough to want to have a conversation.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then, okay, so here's another question then. Okay, this comes out of a stereotype or maybe just what I've seen. So you let me know if this is wrong. Do
Okay.
sometimes people come up to someone with a disability and talk to them as if they are a child when they're a full adult? Is
All
that
the
an issue?
time.
Yep.
All the time.
Tell me about that. Tell me about what we
Eh,
can do better there.
Well, where can we where can we start? We can
Go for
we,
it. I'm
we,
listening.
you're listening. Main point being, we can quit googling what is cerebral palsy. My stepmom, when she first met me, and unfortunately, my dad and the stepmom did not get married, so they were common law, and she just adopted me as a stepdaughter just
Mm,
because I became an orphan. And so stepmom proceeded to go home the first day she met me, and she knew a little bit about me too, um,
mhm,
due to the job she worked at. She knew my mom too, um,
okay.
on and off. So she knew a little bit about my disability. I don't know why, and she'll admit this too. I don't know why that she had to Google, like everyone else, what is CP. Could we please stop Googling what is Lou Gehrig's disease, what is asthma, what is, and just ask a person?
Oh, that was gonna be my next question is, so rather than going and Googling and come back and pretend I know you, to just ask you, "What is this?"
Yeah, just ask me. Just ask me. And don't Google, just ask. And if the person is open and willing enough to share their story, um, they are open and willing enough to share their story, and that's perfectly fine.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, 'cause I'm really glad you brought that up because I would have made the incorrect assumption that maybe you, Win, would be tired of explaining over and over and over, it'd be kinda like if somebody's missing a leg and every time they meet someone, they say, "Where did your leg go?" You know? But no, that's you would prefer to share with
No,
folks.
because Google gives such generalized information that each case of cerebral palsy, each case of paralysis, each case of Lou Gehrig's disease, each case of dementia, each case of um, Williams syndrome, each case of autism is different.
Gotcha. Okay, now I have to ask the question on behalf of your whole audience.
Yeah.
What is cerebral palsy for you?
Cerebral palsy for me is, well, first of all, cerebral palsy, and I'm going to give you the textbook Google definition. I'm sorry, but cerebral palsy is a lack of oxygen injury at birth. Um, yes, a lack of oxygen injury at birth, meaning oxygen was cut off to my brain. We believe, and don't quote me on this, we believe that because my mom was older when she had me, that she had to go get a amniocentesis test just
Mhm.
that there wasn't anything wrong with me. Now, granted, she had 5 miscarriages before she had me. So we believe within the amniocentesis that someone screwed up.
Mhm.
And little old me, I was in the womb at this point. And so someone hit the sac, hit the womb in a very weird way. And then that started the developing of cerebral palsy, because you can develop cerebral palsy in the womb, and you can have cerebral palsy be developed in the womb. I've learned that over the years. And so we believe that them hitting the amniotic sac, the womb, in the wrong spot led to me having cerebral palsy because of um, her miscarriage history too, that led to me having cerebral palsy. So yes, I was supposed to be born in September, Lana being born in June.
Oh, wow. Wow, wait. So you were June, July, August, September. So you were 3 months early?
Uh, 3 months early, and um, only weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces.
Wow. That's incredible.
Inventory 1 pound, 13 ounces, and it might have been 1 pound, 12, and then developed cerebral palsy, and then had a brain bleed. My brain decided to hemorrhage the day after I got diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and I swear that without that hemorrhage, I would still have cerebral palsy, but it would be much, much, much better than it was.
Of course, of course. Oh, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
so when I feel like that topic of listening, you've really covered some of the key pieces that could transform interactions around the world for a lot of people. I Is there anything else that we wanna cover here, or have we really covered the basics?
we've really covered the basics, and you guys, um, I didn't realize that Linda was going to be interviewing me, and I realized when we came up with this concept, I thought I was going to be interviewing her, but nice small reversal, huh? And so I want Linda to say where she can be found, and where her podcast can be found. Her podcast is phenomenal, by the way. I had a chance to listen to it because it's only 2 minutes long.
Yep.
And so I did have a chance to listen to it. And so please tell people where they can listen, and where they can get a hold of you, and where what work you're doing on this
Fan
subject.
Fantastic win. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, and it was an honor to be able to interview you, because this message that you had today, I think, was really, really important. So listening skills, you can find it on listeningskills.shop. So it's not listeningskills.com, it's a .shop, listeningskills.shop. And really the listening skills is really an amazing way to connect with each other and learn how to build communications. And it's all those basic skills that we think we already know for listening, but we have a really hard time practicing. And so it's just a great refresher. And there's a guide there that'll help you get these listening skills practiced in your life and in your family's lives. So do check it out, listeningskills.shop.
And the more and more int I was going to say this, the more and more intimate conversations we have with people, the more and more we as a human society, even if we don't have a mask on, we'll learn about more about what makes them tick and what makes them um, peeved and what makes them who they are, because a text message, and even if you pick up the phone and call a person, a text that is one step closer than sending a text message. Even though
Mhm.
text messages are great, but text messages can get a little screwed up, and let's just say that. And so they can get a little cattywampus. But having communication over the phone, even if you can't see that person, and even if that person can't be in the room with you. And I'm so excited to for those of you that listen to my other podcast, The Artwork of CP, you know that there's a plot twist to me moving, and I'll get into more details on that as of next week. But there's a plot twist to me moving to Phoenix, Arizona, and one of the things I'm so excited about this move is that, and when I'm sitting in Colorado, and the reason why I'm so excited about this move is not only will I have my own house, let alone my own care, and it's not a group home situation by any means. It's not a group home. It is a sense of community
Mm.
down in Phoenix, Arizona, and they designed it as a sense of community. So it would be like having the next door neighbor, except the next door neighbor might have autism or might have Williams syndrome. Say, hey, Win, do you want to come to the group dance? Do you want to go take a walk? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? So I think in this world of screen time and texting, I also think that the communication skills and actually having someone stop and listen to you is great.
Yeah.
Because as I said, as I that's one of the things that drew me to want to this community is not only is it not a group home setting, it's a community of disabled individuals. And I've already been told um, secondhand by a friend of mine that when they spoke to Luna Azul for me down in Phoenix, Arizona, Luna Azul said to them, you guys were looking at us, we were looking for Win. We were looking for someone that is like Win. And so,
Aw.
yeah. And that's what they said to a friend of mine, and I'm like, okay, this gets this sells the home even more and more. So I will let you guys know what's going on and when I move. And yes, I will be doing podcasts. Yes, I will be doing podcasts. But yes, I will be stopping and listening and hanging out with my next door neighbors, because that's how you build friendships. If you if you see a child upset, you don't go walking out the door. You say what's wrong to that child. And the fact of the matter is, I think this will be a great opportunity for me to build lifelong friendships and have the communication skills to boot.
Oh, that's fantastic. I wanna move there. It sounds lovely.
Yeah, well, yeah, I had really cool concepts, and I may even bring one of the co-directors on who's close to the owner and um, have him explain to you guys this concept because it's the first of its kind in the country. And so I'm really excited to see it. I'm really excited to get into the weeds a little bit. But I am really excited to have next door neighbors that have autism, and maybe we can have a communication party. I mean, maybe we can have a little bit of a communication and get them out of their shell just a little bit. Because when you get off talking, when you get off texting and screen time and everything else, you can really have authentic and meaningful conversations in the time span of 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour and a half. You can have a meaningful conversation sitting around a kitchen table.
Yes, you can. That's for sure. As long as
Oh,
this
yes, you can.
as long as people put their cell phones down, yes.
Nope. And people people will put put their cell phones down, and so we'll explain more once I get to Arizona about why I'm so excited to make this move. And as long as people put their cell phones down, and a tip for people putting their cell phones down is that you put a basket in the middle of the table and say, please put your cell phone in the middle of the basket, in the basket in the middle of the table, and say you can't pick it back up until the end of this meal.
Great. Yeah. No, that's a
Yeah.
good practice to have for sure.
Well,
Oh,
I appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode of Ask Win, and I appreciate the support, and I'll let you guys know how you can physically help me, emotionally help me, spiritually help me, because I am going to learn the spiritual here. Um, how you can physically help me, emotionally help me through this move. But so far, you guys have been great. But trust me, I have more jobs for you guys than you know what to do with. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Linda about listening skills. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation and all my conversations. And let's keep this world a better place, and let's make 2021 the best year yet. You guys, thanks to you guys. Bye, you guys.